Get ready to hear stories of resilience, community, and the everyday acts that keep our spirits alive, even when the world feels very heavy. Please give a warm welcome to our panelists, Kleaver Cruz, Juliana Pache, Victor Ramos, and our special moderator today, Afro-Latina actress and author, Franceli Chapman-Varela. Please welcome them to the stage.
All right now. What's going on, beautiful people? We feeling good, feeling great? No, yo necesito más energía. We feeling good, we feeling great? Okay, because if we talking about black joy and embracing blackness, then we gotta turn it up. Thank you so much for being here, spending your Sunday with us. My name is Franceli Chapman-Varela. I am an actor and author. I wrote a poetry book called Between Spaces, because you know my gap is big and it's meant to be loud. And so I really believe in the importance of making safe spaces for people, and I thought how apropos that I am here today in this space with these amazing panelists. So I am going to introduce them. I want to remind you all that after the panel is over to my right, your left, in that white tent, the authors will be signing books. You can meet them and talk to them after the panel. A volunteer can direct you if you get lost from here to there. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our beautiful panel. Ladies first, of course, my sister, Juliana Pache. She is the founder of Pache Studios, my New York sister from Queens. She has familia from Cuba and Dominican Republic, and she brought black joy to crossword puzzles. In 2023, she created blackcrossword.com, a site that offers a free mini crossword puzzle every day, and in 2024 released Black Crossword 100 Mini Puzzles, celebrating the African diaspora. Her next book of mini puzzles will be released in June 2025, and Uno and Spotted bring her joy, so invite her to your next game night, okay? Kleaver Cruz, an educator and activist hailing from New York by way of Black queer Dominicanness, hello, is the creator of the Black Joy Project, a digital and real-world affirmation that Black joy is resistance. TBJP is unapologetically a Black queer space that uplifts the Black LGBTQIA and femmes as a means to uplift all Black people. Kleaver brings pride and joy to every space they step in. Two things that bring Kleaver joy are well-made white rice. Let's be clear. If you don't know how to make white rice, you can't come to the cookout. And music. Right now on repeat, he's bumping Febre by Linkier. So if you are coming to the cookout, bring good music and good food. But I'm sure our next panelist, Mr. Chef Victor Ramos, can help out with the good food. My brother Victor is a celebrity chef, and he organizes monthly events in Southern California to bring people together to enjoy Caribbean food, music, and games. Capicua has gone on to be the largest LA Dominican Puerto Rican party. LA Times has featured this event, and what brings him joy is hanging out at the High Tide and Isla Latin Kitchen. So show some love to our panelists. So we're just gonna get right into it, and this is for everyone. What does Black joy mean to you, and how do you protect it? Anybody?
I'll go first. I think for me specifically, I feel the most joyful when I feel comfortable enough to be spontaneous in what I say, in how I express myself, in how I move my body. I think it looks different for everyone, but yeah, I think feeling safe, feeling comfortable, feeling connected, feeling free, and maybe a little loose.
That's beautiful. My question also to add to that is, how do you protect that? Because there are spaces and places right now where we don't always feel free. We don't always feel like we have the freedom to be joyful. So when you don't feel free to move, something's blocking that. How do you make sure to protect your joy?
I think sometimes you can't. I think you can do your best to feel joyful as much as you can and try to be in those environments where you feel that. But I think sometimes life it sucks.
It does.
But yeah, I think seeking out the light, seeking out the positive, seeking out connections is kind of what's gonna sustain you.
Yes.
In my book, I talk about after interviewing a lot of people asking the same question, that it comes down to having the space to be yourself unapologetically without being told what to do or how to be. Freedom, really. And the best way to protect that is to allow yourself to have that expression, that when you give yourself that permission, it empowers the people around you to do the same. And similar to what Juliana was saying, it's also about being unapologetic of when those spaces are just for us. We don't have to always move that line to allow everyone in. Sometimes it gets to just be for us to protect that peace.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's kind of piggybacking off of these two. It's, just being unapologetically ourselves and being comfortable in expressing ourselves, however we want to. And, luckily for me, like, I try to do that with community events and stuff and, bringing like-minded people together in one space. And even on my off time, I like just being with family and friends and spending quality time with them. Being in a space that I could just truly be myself.
Each of you have created a very specific dynamic space that curates joy and embraces Blackness. What was the process into curating your parties, the puzzles, this project? What really inspired? Because you have to really be, in some cases, meticulous and protect what goes into those spaces, who goes into those spaces. So what was that process of curating each of your projects?
First. I think for me specifically, growing up here in LA, as a Latino Caribbean was a little difficult. I didn't see a lot of representation when it came to our culture and our heritage. All my homies were Mexican or Central American, and so, when I got any chance to share where I came from and where my family came from, people were so in awe and so just surprised of what our culture is about and stuff. And so, I've kind of felt growing up, going through that was a little difficult, and so I just felt like now I feel like it's my duty to kind of hold these spaces, and as each party has gone by, I've have been lucky to hear people's experience of them coming to the party and telling me how important these spaces is to them, and so it just became bigger than me, so I think that's just the motivation, just having a space where our people could come and just be comfortable and be themselves.
That's right. And I think it brings us joy to see other people have joy. Do you look out at the party and be like, oh yeah, everyone's having a good time?
Definitely, most definitely. I mean, that kind of just fuels me, and like I said, hearing their experiences from the party is just like a reminder, it's bigger than me, It's a community out here, and this is what we do it for.
Yeah, I think for Black Crossword, so I guess I'll give you the origin story first, so you can learn a little bit more about the thought process. But I got the idea when I was playing the New York Times Mini one morning, and I thought to myself, oh, it'd be so cool if there was a Black culture focused crossword puzzle. So at first I assumed that it already existed because it felt like a no-brainer. So I was at first looking for it. And then when I couldn't find anything like what I was looking for, I just decided to create it, having never made a crossword puzzle before. And then I think in terms of curating the experience and making it feel nourishing, I definitely went in with the intention of highlighting different cultures within the African diaspora, because I do believe that we are all connected in that way. There's a lot of overlap. Borders are not real. People have migrated, so I felt like there was no other way to do it. And then also being from New York and interacting with so many different Black cultures and languages and music genres and foods, it just felt like it was only right to do it that way.
My story is really simple. I woke up really sad, probably the saddest I had been at that point, and I couldn't move from my bed, and so I was laying there trying to figure out where is this coming from, and so I was meditating, trying to, because I had a job, I'm an adult, I had a job. So I'm like, oh fuck, I have to go to work soon. So I'm laying there trying to figure out what is the source of this. And I had what I have only been able to describe as a very spiritual experience, where I had this like rush all of a sudden, and literally like the words black and joy floated above my bed. And then I just started remembering all of these moments, and that specifically that year was really intense for me and my family. We had lost my uncle. We're from a small family. My uncle had passed away suddenly at the beginning of that year, and this is, I'm talking about like in November, almost the end of the year. And so really I'm talking about grief. I was sitting with grief. The work I was doing was working with young people in some of the most challenging communities in New York City. So dealing with that of not just young people, but the communities that they were a part of, that I'm a part of. And then also doing community organizing work. And 2015 is a year after, what I'm talking about is a couple of months after Sandra Bland had been found in a prison in Texas, after a number of these folks had been killed. And so the moment that I'm talking about was remembering that there was a through line of joy through all of that. And so I remember this picture of my mom, my favorite example of joy. And I put it on Facebook, LOL, back when that was a thing. And I had this, no shit, Facebook is still a thing. And I put this stream of consciousness saying, let us bombard the internet with joy. And it wasn't about not paying attention to the other things. What I was feeling was it was a yes and, that there had to be room for the joy as well, because there always was. I didn't understand that, I just felt that intuitively. And so I posted a picture of my mom, and then I told myself I'll do this just for a month to feel better. So then I posted a picture of my cousin, so on. And after a couple of weeks, people started reaching out to me saying like, hey, like this calmed me down from a really bad nightmare, or please keep doing this, is giving me some juice to keep organizing. And so then that's when I decided to make it a public thing, to move it to Instagram when it was becoming a thing. And yes, and it's just been a journey, a lot of what Juliana just said, of these Pan-African diasporic connections, of understanding that joy could be an entry to understand those complexities of all of us, because we know how often the story starts from suffering or from the tragic things that we've experienced. And that's tiring for us to have to start from there, let alone for other people who aren't us to begin to define us that way. So the project has been motivated by that. Of the joy is to understand all of it, not just some of it.
Amen to that. Yes, clap it up for that. Because Blackness isn't a monolith, and Kleaver speaks to that, Juliana, you speak to that, Victor, you speak to that. Juliana, when you are sitting down and you're putting together these puzzles, how important is that nuance of representing so many cultures, the diaspora across the board? What goes into the process of choosing what references you're going to use? I mean, I went to the Crossword last night, decided, let me see if I got my black card. How black am I? Can I do this? And you are a lover of music, and one of the crosswords says, who is the singer of All I Want Is You? I was like, it's Miguel. And so what goes into that process of choosing a Miguel to be in the crossword? And why is it important for us to see that I'm doing a crossword and there's an artist like Miguel in it?
Yeah, so I'll start with how I created the infrastructure for the words that are included in Black Crossword. So in the crossword puzzle constructing world, there are a lot of word lists floating around. So these word lists, you import them into your program, and they help you build the puzzle. But I knew that I wanted to create a brand new word list specifically with Black culture references and language and slang and just a bunch of references. So I set out to create my own word list. It has thousands of words. I did a ton of research. So that's one. And then in terms of inspiration for specific clues, it really varies. It's like from everyday conversation. It could be like a car driving by playing a song and I'm like, oh my God, that song is iconic. I have to put it in the puzzle. It could be just talking with friends and then we use a certain slang term casually and I'm like, oh, I haven't put that in the puzzle. Let me put that in.
What word? Give me a word.
Oh my God, I don't know off the top of my head. It just flows so naturally that.
So did you put your in there yet?
Oh yeah, I put your
all right.
in
Just
there.
making sure the Bronx is represented.
Your is in the first book.
Okay,
you
great.
can find that one in the first book. You can find I'm weak.
Okay.
Yeah, or I'm dead.
I'm
it's
dead.
the same thing. So
Okay.
sometimes I get people stumped on that one because they
Yes.
think it's one or the other. And then what was the question?
It was just basically those choosing words, how you went into choosing.
Okay, yes. And then in terms of the connecting the diaspora,
Right.
something that I think is a really beautiful metaphor or analogy for the crossword is that it's the words intersect vertically and horizontally, and once you remove one word, like that's the whole puzzle. The whole puzzle's gone. You have to just start over most of the time. And I think those intersections are such a beautiful metaphor for the diaspora because we're all in communication with one another. Yeah, and then in terms of highlighting all of the different cultures, I want people to feel connected to the puzzle. Even if they're from a small country, wherever in the Black diaspora, I want them to feel like their culture is important, like it matters, and that it's impacted the whole community because it has.
And it does, because as someone who's from New York, who's tried to do the crossword puzzle, I told Juliana last night, I'm like, I know I'm not dumb. I graduated cum laude, and sometimes the New York Times I can't relate to it. There's words and things in there that just doesn't, and having someone like you who represents us and being able to do that kind of puzzle, it just brings me so much joy. I wanted to ask Kleaver a question. When we talk about Blackness not being a monolith, Alejandro said that the Black Joy Project does not privilege one corner of the Black world over another, while still offering nuanced perspectives about differences between Black communities. So Afro-Latinx has been coined, especially for those of us who intersect those identities, but how do you identify, and can you share how that was informed?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
I don't identify as Afro-Latinx. I don't even identify with being Latino or Latinx, that term. To me, the way that I've come to understand that feels, it's not even about understanding, the fact of the identity is often feels like a forced pan-ethnic group that is revolving around creating proximity to whiteness. That where in the US or North America, the way race was constructed was around this one-drop rule that anything can make you Black or put you in that proximity, versus Latinidad was set up around this myth or theory of we're one group of people, and often that meant you're closer to the center by being white or something towards whiteness. That's part of why within, like, for example, a country like Brazil, that there's hundreds of racial categories because of creating this distinction of I'm some version that's closer to this centered whiteness. And for me and the way I see the world and have connected with it has been through Blackness. And for me, that feels more accurate. Maybe Afro-Dominicano, maybe, but I actually don't use that term. That Blackness just feels more expansive and encompassing, and it's limiting. Language is limiting. We don't all speak English, so everybody's not identifying as Black per se, because everyone doesn't speak English of the people that I'm talking about or that we're talking about. But yeah, that's part of where it is for me. Latino is
Yeah, it's a very complicated thing. I mean, even Victor, as you were talking about growing up in LA, I didn't grow up in LA, but when I came to LA as a Dominican and I would speak to my Latin brothers and sisters in Spanish, they would look at me like I was an alien. And I was like, you've never seen a black person speak Spanish before? And so talk about the importance of when did you discover you were black, or how do you identify, and how did you embrace and bring that blackness to these parties, to your Mexican brothers and sisters? Talk about that journey being here in LA.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I definitely identify myself as Black, Afro-Caribbean. I think for me it was at an early age. You know, I would go to Puerto Rico, go to the Dominican Republic during the summer and just soak up all the sun and just be like, get hella tan or whatever. And I would come back to the States and, you know, I would just notice like just how dark I was and really just, you know, embracing, you know, my skin tone and you know, how that came about. And then even just being there on the island, seeing people's complexity being darker than mine at a young age was really eye-opening for me. And so yeah, so that kind of put me down the road and like going down, you know, my own research of like where we came from and what our people's history is. And so yeah, that's very proud to you know, embrace those things and those cultures and yeah, and I think, what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Like how you bring the blackness to the parties, because I've been to your parties. They're lit. If you haven't been to Victor's parties, come on down to Capicua. But you see the carnaval represented. Puelos, I can't. Cajuelos represented. For those who don't know what that is, explain what that is and why it was important to bring that to the culture here.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's the Cajuelos, you know, it just comes from DR and it's just a, you know, celebration of our culture and like, you know, where we come from and stuff. And I think you know, embracing the blackness in the parties and that we do and stuff, is just being authentically ourselves. We pride ourselves in playing, you know, the authentic music, bachata, merengue, salsa, even like típico. You know, we cook authentic food, and we try to just focus on what brings our culture joy and not switch up or compromise to appease, you know, others, and just, you know, being authentically ourselves and have people, you know, rock with it or not. And so, yeah.
Juliana, you have a new puzzle coming out in June. Are there any new clues or hints that we can look out for that are being released?
Yes, so the next book, so the first book was mini, so they were 5 by 5, kind of bite-sized puzzles. The next book comes out on June 3rd, so pre-order if you can.
Come on, support! Make sure you support.
And it's a book of middies. So middies are the in-between between a standard size crossword puzzle and a mini. So it's assorted sizes, it's 6 by 6 to 8 by 8. So that being said, I can have up to 8 letters in a word. So, but I would say the content, there are a lot of Afro-Latina figures in the book, from music to film to sports to foods, a lot of food references. So you would like that. Yeah. Oh, and also there are lots of references to historically black cities across Latin America as well.
I love that. We are in the city of, sometimes people say Los Angeles, but I believe they have been found right here. And as we're embracing joy and we're embracing our blackness, what advice would you give to those sitting right here? Right now, living in America is real complicated. And We're living in spaces that they're trying to erase us, and joy is getting harder and harder to find. I feel like every time I turn on the news, I'm angry all over again. Like I was just joyful for a second and now I'm angry. So what advice would you give to those listening that are fighting to find their joy or need to reclaim their joy?
A few things. One is, like you just said, that sometimes I get angry is what I was hearing you say. And I would say is to allow yourself to feel all of it. Joy is not in opposition to happiness, to sadness or any of those things. It's concurrent. That's always happening at the same time. It's a yes and. It's not a conflict. It's the complexity of being. So if you're feeling joyful and angry at the same time, there's room for that is what I'm saying. Because I think also we're in a moment where joy, black joy, has entered the zeitgeist. And it's framed as this if you're smiling and partying, then that's joy. And let's put down a banner, like a 3-story billboard, and that's joy. When the reality is joy is, I'm feeling fucked up because I just saw the news, and I'm about to go to Capicua because that's part of the things I need to do. So give yourself room to exist in that complexity because that's the reality of our lives. The other one is, the way you understand something that's different from you, at best, is to be in community with those people. It's not watching videos about it or just reading a book or watching a documentary or listening to a song. It's actually being in community with those people, which involves struggle. The word struggle is about trying to get through something. It doesn't mean that when you're in community with people that it's always a joyful thing, that we're all holding hands and getting along. It means struggling to get to the other side of that connection where the solidarity actually exists, which means you have to be uncomfortable. And I even say that to other black people, that for us to understand each other, it means to actually be in community with one another across those differences. That yes, joy and all these things connect us, but we actually are different types of people, and that's a beautiful thing. That's the complexity that we need to understand. Because I was just talking about this around the diaspora wars, LOL. And a lot of that, I feel like the heart of it is that we think we understand the other person and we're willing to argue about it when we actually haven't done the work to truly be in community with one another. That we're relying on social media and all these other things to tell us this is who these people that are different from me are, as opposed to truly being friends or at least in community with those people to understand that. That just feels really important, is allow yourself to exist in that complexity and to be in community for real. If you're serious about creating changes and understanding people that are different from you, and that within Latino communities, one is we have to be in reality that racism and colorism exist, that lighter skinned people often get more privileges for being in spaces like this, that Afro-Latino in a lot of ways has become aesthetic. It's about the lighter skinned person with looser curly hair as opposed to the experiences of black people in these parts of the world. The dark skinned people that exist, whether these titles are there or not, that they need to be heard, that all of us are not having the same experiences, and often they're the ones experiencing more of these inequities, these injustices that we often are talking about disproportionately within black communities. And that takes time, again, to be in community to understand that yes, we're all black, but we're not all having the same experiences, and we're denying each other that truth and understanding when we insist that we have to have this one label to name all of us. Because yes, there's people who, no matter what the title is, they're black. Wherever they go, that's how they're being read and treated accordingly. And I feel like we often have to be quiet and listen in that way and share the stage, share the space to do that. And that my book was partly about that, of how do I make sure that my platform, especially as a light-skinned black person, is not just this aesthetic thing. Like, how do we get into the groove of these are lived experiences that are all different, but there is something connecting us. And to me, joy is the window to start that connection.
It's beautiful. So just a reminder, what advice do you give to our audience who are fighting to find joy or need to reclaim it?
Well, everything that Kleaver just said, for
Yes.
sure.
Come on, brother.
I just gotta double down on that. But I think for me personally, one thing that has helped, maybe one small piece of advice, I think, is resisting living in isolation, reaching out to people to build that community and to be connected. I think for me, it's not necessarily about seeking joy all the time, but it is about seeking connection. And I think in the past, like in my 20s, for example, I was very much caught up in the, I'm reaching out to these people all the time, and we're good friends, but I want them to reach out to me more, and then there's a little bit of a standoff. And I think now I've realized that everyone has shit going on. Life is hard, and then so if you're that friend that has the space and the energy to think of connecting with your people, building with your people, if you have ideas, I think just share them and connect, and maybe get out of the insecurity of it all.
Or maybe get together and do a crossword. You know, that might bring you some joy.
I mean, for me, again, piggybacking off of you two, I mean, it's just community for me. I think being amongst each other, sharing stories, breaking bread. I think, especially for me, being a cook and being able to, cook from the heart, cook food that is, means a lot to me. Traditional Dominican and Puerto Rican food. I mean, I come from a long lineage of chefs and cooks, and I feel like food is such an important part of like preserving culture and sharing culture. You could cook I could cook a good sancocho and it brings everybody to the table. Food has that power to do that, and that's what I practice a lot. That's what I try to do, and it's also gives a voice to our ancestors. I pride myself in making traditional food of how it was made, back in the campo and stuff, on the fogón, cooking on the fire, and so highlighting our ancestors in that way gives me joy in that way. So yeah, I think food for me.
I love that. So if you don't know how to cook, there's still time. Get on the socials, hit up Chef Victor, and learn how to make a recipe. Invite your friends over and have some joy. We have a few minutes left. I want to open it up to you all. If you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to grab the mic and ask a question. Anyone?
All right, this is for Juliana, big fan of the book. You mentioned that you have a second book coming out. Was there any difference in building the second one? Like, did you find it easier to make the second book versus the first book?
Yes, I thank you for the question, first of all. Yeah, it was easier really just for practical reasons because I had done the first one. It was more challenging because the puzzles are bigger, so there's more words involved. There's more letters that need to intersect vertically and horizontally, like I said. But what I loved about it is that there was more opportunity to include more words because a 5x5 is kind of limited. So yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you so much. I have one last question. Here we are at the LA Times Festival of Books. So I have to ask, what is a book that has brought you the most joy and that you saw yourself in that book?
That's an unfair question.
I'm sorry. I mean, of course you could say your own, duh. You can say mine, asterisk.
I was gonna say a few. One of them is Edwidge Danticat, anything she writes. Love her. And the very first book that made me feel the way you just asked was Angie Cruz's book, Soledad.
Yes.
That she wrote a story about like a 20-something Dominican girl who moves from the Heights downtown. It was just, I had never read a book like that. And this was like 20 years ago. No Dominican writers were writing like that. But yeah, I really appreciate that book.
Yeah. Angie Cruz is great.
Yeah, I think her writing is not necessarily, the author I'm about to name, her writing is not necessarily joyful, but I feel very connected to it. And I feel like it makes me see myself in it. And that's Jamaica Kincaid. I love all of her books. She's just very raw and real, and she just kind of cracks open the spirit in a way that I think makes me feel more whole as a person, like seen as a person. The way that she describes things is, it's just like kind of visceral at times. It's like those things that you would feel kind of ashamed to say, and she says them so beautifully. So yeah, Jamaica Kincaid.
You want to use mine?
I think for me is a book called Culinary Artistry. Go figure. But it's a book that I read at a very young age, and it kind of gave the spark into my passion into cooking and the culinary world. And it also just speaks about following your intuition and following your gut, and those lessons I learned from that book, and I kind of try to follow those lessons throughout my life, and I've just realized it has created a big impact on me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out with us today, embracing joy and Blackness in our community. I want you to continue to follow their journeys. Juliana at the City of Jewels, Kleaver at the Black Joy Project, Victor at Chef Victor Ramos. Again, I am Franceli Chapman-Varela. You can follow me at all the things at Celly Hangout. And La Libreria over here is going to have our panelists over there signing books. You can meet them, but thank you again and have a joyful and blessed rest of your day.